I wanted to share a little excerpt from my book, The Unshakeable Leader. And it's from a movie it's from a situation that there was a great movie named The Lone Survivor from. And it's about Michael P. Murphy. And the topic is really about selfless leadership. And for him, selfless leadership in combat. There's a great quote that I love that he uses from John 15:13 that says, "Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends." And I think that, again, it's Murphy's favorite quote from his Medal of Honor ceremony. What's interesting is that very few of us care as much about servant leadership as what someone like Murphy or many Navy SEALs have. And what I think is interesting is that all of us need to just make sure that we as people, we as leaders, have the values, all right, that help us to make a difference in other people's lives. And again, you don't have to protect people like Navy SEALs do. What's funny is that his nickname was the Protector. Ever since he was young, he stood up to bullies. He lived with honor. He had a foundation of leadership. But I think that what's interesting is that it was his character, not his rank, that made such a difference. It wasn't that he was a Navy SEAL. It is something that all of us can learn, that the more that we live by a set of values, the more that we live with character, the more impact that we can have as both people and leaders. So Murphy was interesting. He left law school for military service. He chose the hardest path on purpose, right? The Navy SEALs, man, that's hard. And he did it to serve with excellence. And I think that many of us want to do that. We want to serve, we want to lead with excellence. So anytime you get a chance to listen to, watch, read about people like Navy SEALs, you can learn so much because they have to go through so much and are mentally challenged and physically challenged in that order, right? And the key is they lean into challenges, not away from challenges. And what do we do for that? How often do we at home or we at work lean into challenges? How often do we say, I've got something great to learn from this? And really the biggest thing that we can learn is about us, about ourselves. I think that, if you've ever done any reading about the Navy SEALs, that BUDS training is ridiculous. It's like 10 days where they sleep a total of 4 or 6 hours. It's unbelievable. It's one of the most grueling training that a person can go through, and it breaks most people, but from it, from this pain, from this challenge, you can learn things. You can learn composure. You learn discipline. And hopefully a team first mentality. We all have to learn that as people, as leaders. When a leader is not composed. When a leader is not disciplined. And what I think is interesting is that the more that we can learn from people like Murphy, that we don't need to be the strongest. We just need to be the ones who never give up. We just need to be the ones who never give in. So just a real quick context. The battle that I talk about in the book is Operation Red Wings. And a little context with it. A 4-man SEAL team went into enemy territory in Afghanistan. And unfortunately, they were immediately basically seen by goat herders. Unfortunately, the goat herders told the Taliban where they were. And instantly, they were overwhelmed by just sheer numbers. It was huge. And basically, at this point, all of his decisions were life and death decisions. And so what I think is interesting is that, during this horrible fight that ensued, where 3 of the 4 people died, they had to make a decision at one point. Murphy had to make a decision at one point to basically step into the open, right? To make a satellite call asking for help. And he knew he was going to be shot. I mean, how horrible would that be? He stepped into the open, knowing that he'd be shot. And the idea is he did it for his team. I think that what is big is that whenever we can make sure that we make sacrifices for our team, whenever we make sure that we are the buffer, that we help people not to come under fire that are below us, that we take that stress, that challenge, and we stay calm, then we can show them how to have their own resilience. It is such a big deal that Murphy, again, if you read the book, if you watch the movie, whatever, you'll see that he is constantly calling out to his teammates, directing movements, covering his teammates, staying present in the moment. Under fire, how are you? How do you stay composed under fire? It's amazing how he did it so selflessly. And that is the key, right? How often are we willing to put team above ourselves? How often are we willing to put our family above our own wishes? And the more that we truly focus on being selfless, the more that we don't hesitate in these moments when everything is focused on us, then we will be successful. I think that it's interesting because the Medal of Honor is given, almost always posthumously to the nation's military who've done the most sacrifice. How do you, as a person, as a leader, sacrifice? How often do you make sure to show bravery and courage in moments that it's needed the most? In ethical moments and moral moments, at home, at work. How often do people know that you will never falter? It's interesting. There's actually something called the Murph now, the Murph workout. And it's his legacy in motion. And it's hard. It is a 1 mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, all right, 300 squats, and then another mile run in a vest. It's ridiculously hard, right? Ridiculously hard. And realistically, most people can't even do it, but he does it every Memorial Day, because he's also a Navy SEAL. But realistically, what I care about is what rituals do you have? All right. What discipline do you show on a consistent basis that helps you to be resilient, that helps you to step up and have a warrior's mindset? And I think that what is interesting is that I want to make sure that I am brave at home, that I do the right thing in front of my kids, in front of my wife. I want to make sure that I try to have a warrior's mindset at work, that I am willing to put in the grind, that I'm willing to do the work, that I'm willing to make sure to guide my team in the best way possible to create success. All right. I want to have a mission that helps me to create a future for those around me that is better than they ever could have achieved on their own. And what's key is I don't want to be flashy about it. What I want to do is be dependable. The Navy SEALs, Murphy, he wasn't flashy. He was dependable. And we all need to be known for our humility, for our heart, not for hype. And if we can do that as leaders, if we can really be great servant leaders, if we can step up when we're challenged, that's going to be something that other people will learn from us. And that's a key thing. What I want to do is I want to make sure, and when we're talking about Navy SEALs, you and I are never going to be Navy SEAls, but what we can be is great examples, great role models for courage in life, and we won't have to face the courage that Michael Murphy did. All right. He modeled it extremely well. But what kind of courage do you need to have? Do you need to have the courage to make sure to put your phone down at home and spend more time with your kids? Do you need to have the courage to make sure that you get to work on time and you actually do the work when you're there, and you make sure to make a difference in the lives of the people you are blessed to lead? it is interesting that courage can be seen in lots of different ways. I want to have the courage to have focus. I want to have the courage to have grit. All right. I want to make sure that I make the hard calls, right? The hard choices that help to create success for my people. And if we can do that as leaders, if other people can see us making the right choices, then we help to create success for them. And so make sure that, again, if you're thinking about how we can be more brave, how we can have more courage, the real key is in the little moments. The real key is how can we make sure that we show bravery and courage, grit and focus, determination and discipline to the people closest to us. And if we can do that, right, on a day-to-day basis, if we can just be shining examples of what hopefully our kids will end up being like, right? If we can be that light for them, that will be our legacy. And I think that what's interesting is that Michael B. Murphy, he left a legacy that is significant. Other people talk about the amazing things that he has done. Do people talk about the great things that you have done? Do people talk about the impact that you've had on their lives? And what's really great is that if not, start now. Start today. I think that I would love to be a person who helps you along the way. If you're looking for one-on-one leadership coaching, group coaching, or my 6-session leadership program, they're all based on how we can be better people. Because I really believe deeply that you cannot be a great leader if you are not striving to be a great person first. So if you want any help along the way, I'd be happy to help you. Just make sure and click on the link that's attached, or make sure and go to the website. And then you can see all the options we have to help you with leadership. Thanks. Take care.